Hello, my beautiful friends. I hope you're doing well. It is an exciting time for the Switch. This little chunk of the year here has seen a lot of really awesome announcements from third parties and indies, which are also technically third parties, but they're also indies. The Nindies showcase that we had recently is what really got me thinking about it, but the Nintendo Direct is what really did me in. That's what really pushed it over the edge and made me just like, okay, I need to talk about this officially. So let's talk about the Nindies showcase first, though. This is the second Nindies showcase that we have had so far, and each one has been amazing. I mean, just like really, really awesome. They show a ton of games really fast. There are so many coming that they don't even have time to dwell on one. It's not like those things where in the past where it's just like, oh, hey, look, this game is coming to the system. Let's do a little thing on it, a little developer interview. It's like they can't. They don't have time. There are so many games that they're just like, boom, 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 games. Here's 10 more games. Here's 15 more games. And then it's also worth mentioning that No More Heroes was a big enough announcement that they could have saved it for the Nintendo Direct, but instead they put it in the Nintendo Showcase, which is pretty cool because it kind of sets this kind of expectation like, hey, this is all little indie games that are coming to the Switch, but you never know when one kind of big announcement is going to slip in there. In my opinion, though, the most important thing to come out of the showcase was Super Meat Boy Forever. And not because it's the best looking game out of the showcase, but because of what it represents, what it means for Nintendo as a company and their relationships with indie developers. If you're an old fogey like me, you might remember indies on Nintendo were once very, very different. Let me take you back in time, back into the earlier 2000 whatevers, and give you Edmund Macmillan's games, for example. Super Meat Boy was going to be on Wii. They really wanted to put it on Wii, but the Wii had this, the shop had this weird size limitation. Like, I don't know what the number was, but like games could only be so big. So like that right there put a gigantic cap on what could be on the store. And so they were just like, we can't fit Super Meat Boy on the Wii. Like, just because it can't fit, just because of a random little limitation, we can't do it. So it just wasn't, even though Edmund Macmillan and the team, Meat and all them guys, they're super big Nintendo fans. Obviously, Super Meat Boy was hugely inspired by Nintendo games, but they just couldn't do it because numbers is why. Then some years later, they wanted to put Binding of Isaac on 3DS. Problem is, Binding of Isaac is really, really inappropriate in some ways. It deals with a lot of really graphic and crazy themes. And Nintendo was like, I don't know if we really want that. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that there were some religious themes, and they like specifically didn't want that on the 3DS. They just were like, this is not content we want on our system. So again, these are some guys trying to put an indie game, a really, really popular one, on the 3DS, and Nintendo's just like, nah, I don't think so. So fast forward to today, and we have Binding of Isaac on the Switch. It was not a problem this time. And not only is it on the Switch, it was available really close to launch and in a physical retail edition, like a physical copy you can go to the store and buy. And this is near launch when there are few enough games that like people are gonna see it on the shelf. It's not gonna be completely lost. It is completely there. Nintendo was just like, fine with it. Nintendo doesn't care that it's inappropriate anymore. They don't care. They're trying to expand their audience. So they're just like, yeah, put it on the shelf. Make it a game that people can buy. They're just so much more lax now. Then look at Super Meat Boy Forever. It is a timed exclusive on the Switch. And its timed exclusivity isn't really a huge deal when it comes to things. And a lot of people think it's a little bit annoying or whatever. But it's important because it makes a statement. It is Nintendo telling us this is the kind of thing we want on our system. It's telling the developers, it's telling Team Meat, go with us. We are an awesome indie platform. We're not only gonna stop giving you these dumb like size requirements, we're gonna really heavily promote your game. We want it on our system first so that it can really get out there and get to the people first. I know I talk a lot about how things are different now than they were a few years ago. This is a new Nintendo and all that stuff, but it's important. It's really, really important, and it's an ongoing thing. That's why we kind of keep updating it. With each step that Nintendo takes, they're kind of reinforcing this new reputation that they're building. They are at a core level changing how people see them, how developers see them. They are changing the very nature of their relationships with those developers. Developers? But let's move on to more juicy news. And parents, if you have young children in the room, there's going to be a little gore here coming up here. In the latest Nintendo Direct, they announced that Doom and the newest Wolfenstein would both also be coming to Switch, in addition to Skyrim. These are all Bethesda published games. And this is huge. Again, it's not just the games themselves that make it huge, though the games are certainly big. Doom is from last year, but it was a really good game, ridiculously highly acclaimed game. I love it. It's like one of the only first-person shooters. I could make a whole entire video on Doom, on why it's awesome, and why if a Nintendo fan is gonna play one first-person shooter, they should make it Doom. It might all be about, like, going around and blasting and tearing apart demons and stuff, but, like, there's a ton of secrets and unlockables and upgrades and stuff, and it's just very satisfying. Gameplay is awesome. It's super good. Then Wolfenstein is mostly big because it's a new game. It's not even a last year's game. By the time it comes to Switch, it might end up being a last year's game, but basically, it's not out yet now. The Switch one is coming after the other consoles, but hopefully not by too much. But it's still interesting that it hasn't even been released yet, and they're still putting that much faith in the Switch and being like, it will come to it. These announcements are so big because this is a lot of confidence coming from Bethesda. We are still in the beginning of the Switch's life. In the beginning of a console's life, things are a little bit shaky. Nobody exactly wants to be the first one to dive in and spend a bunch of money in case things don't work out. But this is Bethesda right there, diving in, taking a bunch of risks. Not the biggest risks in the world. They're not developing a bunch of huge exclusive games for the system, but they are still really big games that are gonna take a lot of work to port. Skyrim, because it's just enormous, and Doom, because it's always been praised for its amazing performance, and Wolfenstein, because again, it's just a new game. That is a pretty hefty workload for Bethesda. And the most interesting thing here, the biggest thing to take away from Bethesda's confidence here, is that they already had Skyrim coming to the Switch. They easily could have waited. I mean, any number of people or companies or whatever would have waited if they're like, hey, I'm gonna take a risk, put a game on this system and see how it goes. They could have just not announced anything else until Skyrim came out and they saw how it did. But they didn't. They didn't wait. They instead revealed 2 more big, huge games that are gonna take a bunch of work. They feel that the Switch is a good enough proposition that they thought it was best to invest in it now. And they're saying, we're gonna put our games on here, we're gonna see how they do, and hopefully make the platform better. By taking these risks, they are building up the platform and hoping that it attracts other people, paving the way for other developers and publishers. Again, it's a good ways away from somebody making a huge AAA game just for the system, but it's also far from being easy and simple. It is a big fat risk, especially because these games aren't really like traditional Nintendo games. You know, Nintendo's got that reputation of colorful, family-friendly games and stuff, so, you know, we haven't really had a whole lot of really important, really successful, mature-rated shooty games on their systems. But Nintendo is trying to expand their audience, and their Bethesda is with them, giving them that fodder to expand the audience with. They're giving people what they might want to play if they're not only into those colorful, family-friendly Nintendo games. It's just so impressive that they want to. I mean, this isn't some quirky little indie studio who's just banking on their game performing well on a Nintendo system. This is Bethesda. They are one of those big publishers that are a very big fan of money. They love money very much, like most very big companies do, but they still see something in the Switch. They think that they're going to get a return on that money. We just gotta hope that they encourage others to take that plunge too, because we have to admit there is still a pretty long way to go as far as third-party support goes. Bethesda is just one publisher. They're very big, but they are still just one, and the Switch still doesn't have a humongous amount of third-party support. Mario & Rabbids is a big third-party exclusive game, and it sounds like it's doing pretty well sales-wise, though to be fair, it does have Mario on the cover. I don't know if it would be doing nearly as well if it was just Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Project Octopath Traveler looks really amazing. That could be a really big one, because that's a very unique-looking game coming out to the Switch. We have to really hope that one turns out well. And of course, there are plenty of other really fun ports coming. I mean, like you saw in the Nintendo Direct, we got Dragon Quest Builders. That looks amazing and perfect for the Switch. You know, lots of good stuff coming. But on the other hand, it is taking a really big blow in the form of Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter in the past has been Nintendo's portable powerhouse when it comes to sales. That is a third-party game that really sells a lot on Nintendo's portable systems. Problem is, Japan is getting double cross or XX or whatever it is But so far, there's no announcement for the US, and that's an old game, and the Switch isn't getting Monster Hunter World, which is coming to Xbox One, PS4, and PC. That is a big blow to Nintendo, that they're not getting the new Monster Hunter. It's also really confusing, because it sounds like the portable ones do really well, but I don't know. I'm not gonna go over every single third-party game coming or not coming to the Switch, but you get the idea. Things are still a little shaky. There's a lot of room for improvement. There's still a long way to go. The biggest problem here is that the longer it takes for people to hop on board, the longer it'll take for their games to come out if they do hop on board, and we certainly don't want the whole console support conundrum thing where people don't support it because they want to see how it'll do, but then it doesn't do well because there are no games for it, so they still don't support it, so it still doesn't do well, etc. That whole idea is very frustrating. Especially with the Switch, it has such a good concept and such good early sales that it's just kind of like, everybody, will you please just jump on board now? If you all jumped on board at the same time, it would be an enormous success and you would all make a ton of money, but people are still being very timid and dipping their toes in the water, and But this is a story that is still being told. This is a picture that has not yet been filled in with beautiful color. There are only more Nindy showcases and Nintendo Directs and all that and E3s to tell us for sure, to finish painting that picture, writing that story. Yeah. So anyway, are any of these third-party games looking pretty good to you? Any of these you're thinking about picking up? Let me know down in the comments, and you have a great day. Go outside. It's beautiful outside. I don't know for sure if it's beautiful where you are, but I'm going to completely assume it is and tell you, go outside and take a nice walk. Unless there's like a big natural disaster or something, or like a big mean dog, or poison gas or anything like that, don't go outside. I don't want to be held liable for any damages caused by you going outside because I suggested it. Gotta be careful when you're a YouTuber these days.